Are you a leader in customer success, pre-sales, professional services, support? Do you work behind the scenes and roll up your sleeves to make sure that customers are happy? Renew. Then this is for you. Welcome to the GSD Podcast. Welcome to the GSD Podcast. Getting it done. Services, success, and software. We'll talk with the pros that have been in the trenches, getting service teams off the ground, launching new types of groups to service customers, or running agencies that don't have a product attached to it. For the pros, by the pros. This is the GSD Podcast, and this is your host, Jeff Kushmerek.
All right, so this week I'm joined by my new friend. It's always nice to make new friends. Aww. Rachel Provan, right? Did I pronounce it correct? Because I just
you did.
Okay, because I had the very fancy schwa and the French version and stuff like that. But
I'm jealous.
That's great. And you're coming to us straight out of Brooklyn?
Yes, I am. Yep, Carroll Gardens, Brooklyn.
Awesome. So Rachel and I met at the, although I'd certainly followed you on LinkedIn. But we met. Well, I don't want to be the creepy guy just connecting to random people, though, right? Like this, that's not. Yeah. So followed, and then we met at the Gainsight Pulse Super Spreader event, and
exactly, yeah.
Yep. And just really hit it off, and I think we had a lot of subjects that we really liked talking about, and we're going to get into those. But first, if people don't know who you are, the 3-minute, it doesn't have to be the resume read, but just how are you learned on these subjects that we're going to discuss today?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I won't do the full resume, but I've been in one way or another working in customer success for 16 years.
Yeah.
So even before they really called it that,
yeah,
it's still what I was doing.
Oh yeah. Account management, like whatever. Like, we call it pro serve, whatever.
Right. All of it mushed together.
Yeah.
And I've been in, financial print, I've been in AI, I've been in, productivity, I've, large, small companies all over the place. So I've been a leader for 14 of those years. And yeah, CS leadership is my jam, man. I can't shut up about it. Yeah. As you can probably see on LinkedIn, I don't shut up.
And I will put your LinkedIn profile in there. So, cause you come out with some really insightful stuff where I'm like, I wish I had the time. I wish I could write. I wish I had not the time, but I wish I had the patience to list my thoughts out like that.
Oh, it takes time. Believe me, that's not cranked out in 5 minutes, but I love writing.
Oh, so you're not there at 7:45? Like, oh shit, I got to crank something out today.
Yeah, not so much. When I do have to do that, I have a few templates that I'm like, all right, here are 5 things I don't like about this.
In my mind, I imagine me sitting at a typewriter on my hearth with a cup of coffee and maybe my ascot, and then I'm just typing away. But that's.
Well, if you had all the props, then of course you could come up with gold.
All right. So hot button topics for us to discuss. You look at you, you're tensing as I bring it up, which is CS boundaries in time management. So we got some topics that we're going to get into, but in general, I know it's something you talk about a lot. So let's get into it. Why does this bug you so much, and why do you feel like you need to stand on top of tables and yell at people about this?
Great question. It's something I do think about a lot. And I think that whenever I mention it to anyone, they immediately go, yes. And yet I don't see it talked about anywhere. So I was like, well, then I clearly need to open my big mouth, because my favorite things to talk about are the ones that, like, we all know this and no one is saying it. Can I call it out here?
Can we just stop the BS and just actually get to the real subject there? Yeah.
And especially, it's actually one of the things that made me, I recently moved from, being a CS executive to having my own coaching business for new CS leaders, because they all drown.
Yeah.
The average term for a new CS leader, or for most CS leaders, is 18 months. And it's because of burnout or because, their company doesn't see the value in what they're doing. But
are they typically player coaches?
At least half. I do everything in my power to get them to stop being player coaches. I was like, I will call your boss. This is not in anyone's best interest.
This will set you off, but this is the player coach that is the head of CS, and I just quoted head.
I've been there. I've been there. And it's one of those things that you may have to take that role in order to move into a management position.
Okay.
No, it's temporary. It's going to be horrible, but you're going to learn a lot. That's just the nature of the beast right now. Hopefully we'll be learning more over time how to career path. That's something that I'm very passionate about as well. Adding in layers of management for your team so that they have a way to grow, and so that we're not throwing people into CS leadership from being a CSM and saying, okay, you'll know how to do this because you've been a CSM, when the two jobs could not be more different.
Right. That's why, like, you see this in development teams a lot, where they take the best coder, who sometimes is usually a sociopath, and then they turn them into like the best, and I've seen the best managers as like not that great developers. And I'm not saying that necessarily should be the case with CSM, but there is some job stuff that you need to know how to do. But
yeah. I mean, I'm a decent CSM. I'm a really good manager. And it's because I like, coaching people and developing them and being strategic. But if you don't like working with people, and if you have to own your own results all the time, it has to be all you are not going to be a very happy camper in management.
Absolutely. So let's get into this. Let's break this use case down a little bit.
Yeah.
You just get, not you obviously, but like, maybe somebody you're coaching just got hired or promoted, and they are now the player coach, head of CS.
Yes.
What does their day look like on a day? I'm sure it's like a Tetris game and you can't even squeeze in that little.
I can tell you what their day looks like. It's pretty.
I know what it looks like.
Yeah. You know what their day looks like. You see that calendar, block it all off with meetings, one after another, back to back.
6 a.m. to 6 p.m. if you're lucky enough to have a European team.
Yep. And of course, after all of that, the problem with this is they say yes to everything because they, CS people, we want to help. We are people pleasers, and we're new at this. And, and when you're an individual contributor, it's kind of your job to say yes.
Right.
As a manager, not so much.
Right.
And especially as a department head, it's like, you have to say no to some things.
Yeah.
So they say yes to everything because they want everyone to think they're doing a fantastic job. So all of a sudden they're back to back. Everyone wants a touch point meeting, which is code for, I don't know what we're going to talk about, but I'm going to be on your schedule in case I want to talk to you about something.
Right.
Just all of these, so that they're agreeing to all these projects on all these meetings, but they have zero time to actually work on them during the day.
That's what I say. When does the work get done?
It gets done at night and on the weekend. And this is how we end up with burnout.
Yeah.
And no one is telling them to do that work then. But they're like, I have to get it done. They all feel very responsible and feel like they're slacking if they don't do it. And again, I'm like, you have to be in charge. You have to put up the barriers. As you become a leader, you have to know what works for you. Is this working for you? Then you need to say so. You need to say, I need time to do my work. And you need to block that off your calendar.
Absolutely.
An open calendar is an open invitation. I block off
huge chunks of time. Huge.
Yeah.
Nobody gets this block right here.
Exactly.
I'll tell you, Friday 2 to 6, nobody can get that.
Exactly. Because when are you going to get the work done?
Right.
And I'm not talking about checking your email and your Slack and all that. That's going to interrupt you as well. It is absolutely possible to get your work done in a work day by focusing on the right things. And those boundaries are what you need to be able to set the right things.
Yeah.
It's not super complicated. It's, you take a look at something and you say, is this actually going to move the needle forward?
Absolutely.
What is my goal? Is my goal increased NRR? Is my goal, just retaining whatever we can because, we have huge churn right now? Is my goal to, improve onboarding? What is my goal this quarter? You can have like 1 to 2 strategic initiatives and that's it.
Yep.
Everything else has to go in a parking lot if you're going to make any progress.
And when you talked about some of those things, I just, if you don't mind me inputting,
yeah, please.
I just remembered that the one thing I would consistently have to say to people is that I think we talked about this in person, but the quadrants of urgency, right? Like
Uh-huh.
yeah, which is
The
like
Eisenhower
I'm
matrix.
working on my stuff, and that is my most important things, which is, I thought about that when you talked about these are my strategic goals for the quarter.
Mhm.
Now, somebody else's strategic goals, unfortunately, aren't your strategic goals.
That's right.
And so I used to, unfortunately, didn't make a lot of friends, but saying like, I'm so sorry, but your most important and urgent problem is my least important one right now. There's a nicer way to say that, but essentially, yeah, I learned later in life, maybe don't draw that quadrant and say you're here in the bottom
Yeah.
left, like
Yeah.
I'm doing,
Oh my God.
like I'm doing
This is why I love you.
like one of those grids when
Yeah.
you're judging personnel, like you're
You
here
are
in the
here.
bottom left.
Yeah.
I'm working on this stuff
Top
here.
right. Yeah.
Don't do that. There's a professional tip for you.
Yeah. One of the things I talk about is, we don't like boundary setting because it's not, in line with who we are. We feel like we're being unhelpful. We feel like we're being uncollaborative.
Yeah.
But you actually need to look at it from another perspective. It's pretty unkind to say yes to something if you don't really have the bandwidth, or if you're going to resent the person for it.
Yeah, you're lying. You're essentially lying.
Yeah. And you're manipulating them to try and make them feel a certain way about you, and
Oh, I like that.
do you really want someone else doing that, saying yes, something you asked them to do? Totally reasonable. They could have said no, but if they say yes, and then they're mad at you about it, or they don't finish it, that's not a great outcome for anybody.
No. Or you give them crappy work product because you're
Exactly.
working 60 hours a week or more.
Yeah, you're not going to do it well, or you're not going to finish, or you're going to hate them. None of these is what was intended.
Yes.
So it's, as you said, like, it's in how you deliver the saying no.
Yeah.
It's in understanding that their priority is something big. It's, saying, oh my God, that sounds so amazing. Oh, you must be so excited. That's going to do so much. I so wish I could help you. I am
I wish the best of luck for you. Right?
Yeah. It's like, I'm up to here, who might be able to help you. If it's someone who will not kill you and actually might, they might be able to point you in the right direction.
Absolutely. So we talked about blocking the calendar off as a good way. And then we just talked about deferring. I'm going to ask you, you've said this word 3 times in the last 5 minutes. So I'm going to Slack.
I hate Slack. Sorry. I do.
How about Slack when your customers, you're head of CS and you're made the awful mistake of allowing your customers to have open CS channels?
Never make that mistake. I had this debate with someone very passionately over a dinner.
Well, the answer is easy. Like, if you like working weekends and nights, like,
exactly.
Absolutely.
The problem with Slack is that there's an expectation that you're going to answer instantly.
Right.
They're like, these people, these Gen Z, they're not, they don't use email. It's like, well, they will if you don't have a Slack channel for them. But they want it. I would like to buy
pony. I want to sit here and watch movies all day, right?
Exactly. Like people in hell want ice water. I'm sorry. It's just we don't always get what we want. And sometimes it's for our own good, and in that case, there's literally no way to be productive because you're completely task switching all the time. If you want a support team instead of a customer success team, because they are reactive and they do have to be on the ball and they do have to be fast. But if you want someone to be strategic, can't have it. I routinely turn off Slack and my email. Took a lot of discipline. I did it for an hour at a time and on my phone too. And I got all twitchy, but I did it for an hour at a time until I got to a place where I was like, I check email 2 to 3 times a day at these times. I check Slack at this time and this.
Tim Ferriss stuff.
I was not, because I had to, because it was sucking up all my time. And if I really did, the other thing about setting those work boundaries, and sometimes that's, hey, I don't work after, you're not gonna be able to reach me after 6 o'clock. You're just not.
Yeah.
It was so hard to set those for me, especially, as a woman, feeling like I had to work twice as hard to be like, no, I'm serious.
Yeah.
And then once I had kids, it was like, no, I just don't have the option. Like, I am fully not available.
Right.
And it was shocking to just be, it's not a big deal to just say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not available then.
Right. People get it.
Question it. They're not like, well, why?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't happen. You just have to show people like, this is the operating manual to working with me. Here's how to get me to do my best work with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so Slack and that sort of time management, having an open calendar and things like that are huge issues. What are some of the other like biggest time sucks from making a CSM be, or in a CSM leader be productive?
CSM leader is, again, they say yes to too many meetings. There needs to be what I like to tell people to do, because they're afraid to say no. Again, make a list. I have a productivity system that I work with that I share with people. It takes into account that Eisenhower matrix, the urgent, important, and it sorts things to where they need to be.
Got it.
You actually schedule in the things that are important but not urgent. They go on your calendar. You attend them like a meeting.
And just a note on that, I will screen share my calendar and be like, I'm going to do this work right there, which shows like, okay, it's not now, it's then, it's going to happen. Right.
Yeah.
And also, you can't contact me when I get this, because I will definitely go rogue and turn Wi-Fi off, everything else.
Yeah, exactly. It's like this. I have a date with myself. I have a meeting to do that.
Yeah.
And it's not like, oh, that's open time and I'm going to go check my email. It's not. It is assigned for that job.
Yeah.
So you pick 1 to 2 initiatives a quarter. You break them down. I like to think of it as an outline, like you would do in school when you were writing a paper.
Yeah.
Like, what are the 5 big umbrella things that we need to get this done, this initiative. It's like, well, let's say it's the customer life cycle. Well, we're going to work on onboarding. We're going to work on adoption, blah, 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 blah. List those out. Then just look at onboarding, pick 5 things there and assign those little tasks to yourself throughout the week. So it's not like work on customer journey project. It's do this, and this task.
Yeah.
To get the information for the onboarding. That's much more manageable. Like I can manage tasks, a big looming, overwhelming project that must, increase, or decrease our churn by blah, blah, blah. It gets overwhelming. So knowing when you're going to work on that, it makes a difference. And having those, it's really about having those 1 to 2 initiatives and confirming that with your boss, whoever it is, going to them and saying, look, if you add everything that you have to do and everything on your plate to any sort of list, I use Trello, but any sort of list to be like, here's what I'm being tasked with. You are aware of how many hours are in the day and how many hands and how many brains I have. We have an issue, so, but if you go to them and say, like, here's what I'm thinking, this is what I understand to be the priorities. Right. Would you agree with that? Right. And so long as you're all on the same page, then it's like, okay. Unfortunately,
that's the way to do it. I used to always tell people on my team, like, if you've got 5 things, come to me and say, what are the 3 things I should be? Or like, ask your boss to reprioritize them so you don't get in trouble for not doing those other things. You asked me to do these, I'm going to go do on those, right?
Yeah. It's just about setting those expectations properly, and that can be scary when it's someone above you. But one of the things about leadership is that you're not taking so much direction as you are working as a team and saying, I know how to get this done. Here's how we get this done. Is that a problem for anyone? Like, are we on the same page?
And I'm sure you do this with your clients, and let's take this to the next level. I'm going to tie this back in with something previously. Take that, what you just said, and combine it with the hired as head of success. If you come in and say, in 6 months, I want to have a conversation, or it could be a year, but whatever, upon anniversary date, we're going to discuss, my promotion to this next level. Mm-hmm. And I would like to hear from you, what are those objectives that I need to do? Because guaranteed they don't know what the hell to answer those.
Right. It's true. And that is what I do with my, I have actually a CSM to director track.
Oh, nice.
And that's a quickie. That's like a 2 meeting thing. And that's about saying, doing a skills gap assessment and saying, here's where I believe I am. Here are the things that I believe I would need to learn. And, having that, here's how I plan to learn them. If there are any opportunities that you see for me to get experience with that, I'd love it if you, take it off the plate and throw it to me. But so long as you can present them with a plan, like, here's where I need to be, here's how I plan to get there. Does that align with you? What sort of timeline can we work on? Because I can do this work. It's what I want to do with my career. and if you've had any sort of conversation in the hiring process at any point about moving up, then it should be, I've had plenty of people I know say, yeah, we had that in the hiring conversation and now like they won't have it with me.
Right.
And that's brutal. And we have to, look at certain factors. That's again why I talking all my little secrets here, but I like having an accomplishment tracker.
Yeah.
Because then the whole time you're just marking things down as you're making a difference, tying in numbers. And then, when it comes time for your performance review or whatever, you go here.
Exactly.
This is
here
what
you go.
I've
Here's
done.
all that stuff. Track it all. It's like, keep that Evernote. I tell people, keep that Evernote going. When you get an email from somebody saying amazing job, stick that in your folder that's called like promotion or something like that.
I have a kudos file. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Here's the difference between the two of us right there. But I actually, speaking of giving secrets away, I talk about this one. So in Diane Gordon, who was my mentor and it was on the podcast a long time ago, I had this issue when I was not working with her anymore, where I was trying to get a promotion, the same situation that you said, like it was going to promise to you and then suddenly it's not happening anymore. And she told me, after doing sort of like getting an assessment of what that leader, how they operate and everything, person like to think they had a lot of power, right?
Yeah.
And so basically said, you need to walk in to your next one-on-one, which is, weeklies, and say, in regards to the promotion, I love this speech. This came from her, not from me. I just repeat it all the time. You either won't do it or you can't do it. And this is going to be the number one thing that we talk about on a weekend basis. This is the number one thing on the top of the list and everything right there. You just can see just like all the different things you're doing with that statement and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
And it was literally like, first of all, that leader was taken aback. Like, I didn't think we had to go there. And I'm like, I've been asking for 2 months, right?
Yeah.
Like, in a nice sort of way. So I'm now raising the level. I will say, definitely got the promotion that I was looking for and everything, which then wound up being this like career changing. It was worth it, but I will say the relationship. So she definitely respected me a lot more, but there was the relationship definitely altered after that conversation.
Yes.
So yeah.
That reminds me a lot of one of my favorite books, The Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. I know everyone's read it, but I love it anyway.
Oh, it's great. I still get his emails. I actually met him because he was, before it got really big, he spoke at a conference and he was literally just sitting by the Sterno food tables and just like hanging. That's a great book. Yeah. The audio book is it's one of those ones where I just dial up every few weeks and just listen to them when I'm walking the dog.
Right.
And don't read that all at once. Yeah.
Yeah. I need to absorb that over and over because it's like, it's what I know to be true anyway. So much of that is about empathy, which shocked me. I was like, oh, but I do this anyway. Oh, no wonder that works. But I actually do care. So that helps.
All about empathy, right? I mean, that's a great thing because I actually hadn't remembered that. And whenever I had staff members that were upset that they were getting yelled at, I'm like, well, let's think why they're yelling at you. Why do you think they're yelling at you? They're scared.
Yeah. And look, every single one of us gets defensive when we get yelled at. It's like any of us can be like, oh, well, they're scared from the outside. And on the inside, you're like, yes, but you don't understand. I'm going to get fired. I'm going to lose my apartment and have to live under a bridge with my family. Because that's where our brains go, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Steam coming out of our ears. Right?
Exactly. Where it's like, whoa, they just told you, like, can you keep your desk a little neater? Wow. But that's where I go, my brain's off the tracks.
So listen, I had a super specific thing. We actually talked about this before, when we were doing a little prep stuff, and I can't find a great way to segue. So I'm just going to try and generalize.
Do it. Yeah.
So suddenly you free up the CSM's time, right? Yeah. And the example I talked about which is very classic in startups, which is, the original CSMs are usually doing everything that goes post-sale, including a lot of support. And then they get sucked in to do a lot of support work. And then finally they get freed up. In my experiences, they still do a lot of support work. So I was trying to figure out a way that you would coach a team or a leader to be telling their team that you need to be doing more valuable work than just jumping at. You're trained, obviously. You're doing a great job here, but we don't need you to do that, react to every hot button thing every.
Right. Well, the way that I manage most people, and something that I think really helps with that and giving any sort of feedback is understanding where they want to go with their career, what their next step is.
Yeah.
And saying, look, I can't guarantee that that'll be tomorrow, but I want to know where you're going because I want to help you get there. I want to help you develop. It's on you to, push it forward, but I will play to your strengths. I will give you opportunities to learn if it's along that path. So, and people tend to buy in very well with that. They take on additional projects, it gets stuff off your plate. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So if they're doing things like this, you bring it back to the what's in it for me. You bring it back to, I know that your next step is to become a manager, right? So this is something I think it's important for you to know if you're going to be doing that, because there will be all these things that are right in front of you, and you have to learn how to focus, even though you could do them in that moment, because here's what's going to happen. Here's the mindset you have to be that leader. You have to focus on what is going to move the needle here. Is it going to be the boring, strategy work where I look at some of the data and see if I can figure any of it out, or just, make myself feel good because I fixed something quickly? And you got to be willing to do the stuff you're not comfortable with. That's why the player coach role is so dangerous, beyond it being completely unrealistic. But people are always
managing people while you still have 30 customers to maintain.
It's like you're doing 2 impossible jobs at once. Great. That's going to go great. No quality issues there. But people are always going to gravitate towards what they know they're good at. So they're going to go to the customers because they're like, I know I don't mess that up. This huge potential to mess up. So I'll just do this one thing with the customer, but they really need me. That's the big thing. They really need me. It's important that sorry, I have to fix my camera here, but that I have this relationship with them. It's like, honey, I hate to break it to you. CSMs leave all the time. They will survive. We can talk about how we'll transition it, but they are not going to leave. They've not stayed because they like you. They may like you, but that ain't it.
I know. And that, my statement on that, so like Bill Gates left Microsoft. Microsoft's doing fine. Like they're going to handle it.
Yeah.
But that probably into a longer conversation goes into that whole revenue relationship thing. I don't know, in a couple minutes we could talk about that, but you see that we're like, oh, I don't want to be responsible for upsells or renewals or anything like that because we've got this relationship, and I'm like, this relationship is because they paid your company money. Like they're quite aware they're paying your company money.
There's something, I wish we had a phrase for this here, because when I was an actor, and, sometimes you'd have to make business decisions about a film that you're on. And we would say, look, it's show business, not show friends. And I wish there was a way to say that in business, because it's like, it's just business. Like, it's not that there aren't some parts to it that are personal, but we have to remember that this is involved and this is the main focus here.
Yeah.
And in terms of the revenue thing, I can hit on that real quick, because I hated it. I hated having to handle that.
Yeah.
It made me self-conscious. I was like, this is not what it's about. We should be about getting their outcomes.
Yep.
And then I had no seat at the table. I love relationships and stuff like that. And it's like, but okay, so go be a therapist, which I would love, but it's not what we're doing here. And the thing is, you're not necessarily helping someone by keeping them comfortable. Sales, and I didn't understand what good sales was,
right,
and how it could be done without being
sales people. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and like I'd read up on like objection handling and closing, and I was like, I hate every bit of this. And so I read spin selling, and that really changed my perspective on everything, because it was like, okay, so what is the actual problem? What are you not seeing here that are going to be unintended consequences? I'm helping you out here. And not saying it that, but just, okay, so, but might not that affect this over here? Like if you're not, doing this, I forget, we'll have to come up with some sort of fake company to do it about, but
it's always tough because we're always afraid to start talking about our customers and things.
Exactly. So, but it's just like, you're aware probably, hopefully, of what's going to happen if they don't take on certain features. It's like, I'm telling you this not to add one more thing to your plate. I'm telling you this because I've noticed that our customers who succeed, they use this because here's what it does for them. And if they don't use it, things start to pile up slowly. And when they pile up, all of a sudden, here's what happens to you in your job. It doesn't look so good. And let's just clear that out of the way. So don't try and sell them everything. Sell them what's relevant. and that's when it aligns with CS.
Yeah. If you make the case, especially if you know their business and they're doing it, not like, hey, we got this great thing, product says it's X, Y, and Z. And it's like, I've noticed based on, that problem you told me about could be solved with X, Y, and Z. That's
right. It's like, oh, it's interesting you mentioned that. We actually do have something. I'd love to ask you a few questions about it just to see if it's the right fit.
Right.
Because it's still, you do have to still be on their side doing the right thing for them to get them to their goals.
The best salespeople are great because they truly believe that when you buy that product, it will help them out.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, even in like consults for my current clients, I had to come to that realization. Like I felt weird asking for money, even though I knew it would help. It was like, wait a minute, like the amount I'm going to help this person, and I got coaching or I wouldn't be doing this. Like the amount I was helped, I'd pay double, because it sped me up 3 years at least.
Yeah.
So, but it's about realizing, no, like people buy things because they get an outcome, because it's useful and they're happy about that. They tell other people when that goes well.
Yeah.
So it is talking to your CSMs and explaining how to sell in a way that doesn't feel icky.
Right. Absolutely. No, that's great. Let's wrap this up with two things here. Any little hacks or productivity tools or anything? Like, because I feel like you're up on this more than
all of them.
Yeah. I don't only ask this question, but I know that when you were talking about some of the things we were talking about, you've got some.
Yeah. I would say, my best hack is to add 2 separate hours to your day. No, this is not your lunch break. Please eat lunch too.
Yeah.
And don't try and work during it. Like your keyboard's going to get gross.
Yeah.
I speak from experience. So, but 2 separate hours a day, they can be together, better if they're separate.
Yeah.
People can't schedule over them, and you have scheduled in things to do during them that are part of those 2 strategic initiatives. You've scheduled tasks from the initiatives. And if you're trying to figure out what a task is and it seems like too much to break it down, just say, all right, what is the one single next step here that I could do? Stole a teeny bit from getting things done, but I don't have to.
I didn't read that, so that's great.
Yeah. It's great, but it's a little too rigid for me. And like, I don't want to spend.
Well, systems in general, I'm not a big fan.
Yeah.
Right? Like you got to be an adult and sort of take what works. Just
say like, all right, just to move the ball forward here. What am I trying to achieve? What will get me closer to that? What can I do in an hour? Okay, I can email this person and ask them for this information. I can write this into a list, pass it on to this person who's going to take it next.
Yeah.
It's those little things that make it that much more manageable. So that really has been such a game changer for me, breaking it down to little pieces and making that space for myself, and seeing that the world didn't end when I closed my laptop at 5-6 o'clock. And, it spun merrily without me. Yeah. I wasn't here to fix the entire company, nor could I, unfortunately.
Right.
Right.
Let's not think we're greater than we are by thinking that, but
there's some ego to the fact that we think only we can handle this. Right. No, it doesn't have to be you. And it's okay if it's not. You're not a jerk. You're not slacking by seeing your family, having dinner, sleeping.
I like sleeping. Absolutely.
You are not going to get promoted or paid more all of a sudden because someone's like, hey, I noticed you're cranking out a lot of work. I think it's time for a promotion. They're going to say, this is how much work that person handles. Here you go. Take some more.
Yeah.
They're not trying to be a jerk.
Bad manager. Bad manager does that, right? I'm usually like, you need to I do not want to see emails at 3 o'clock in the morning. Exactly. All I do is think is that like, A, you can't get the job done during the day.
Yes.
Or you're taking on too much stuff and you're afraid to push back.
Well, that's a good manager. Yeah. But you have to manage yourself at that level. That's the problem. So that's where we burn out so fast, because we don't have someone to say, hey, you are talking a very good game and you're not doing it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know anything about that.
Exactly. I know. I'm actually not bad, but let's do this. I'm changing my question. I used to have, which was what was your COVID activity? But now I will say this: the leaves are falling in the northeast up here. The skies are getting dark. What's your not working? Your big activity for the winter that you're planning up? Like
rearing children.
No, I know. That's all I knew you were going to say that when I said it.
Yeah, so it's okay. What I like to do is knit. I've been knitting since I was 8. I make these big, complicated cable sweaters, like the Irish fisherman sweaters, things like that, that no one ever really wants to wear because they're so big and bulky, but I enjoy knitting them.
I would not have guessed that one. So
Do you see?
That's why I'm glad and I don't have one yet. I have to find a bigger one. So it's not going to be knitting enough. It's not going to be.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
Awesome. So let's do this. Tell everybody where they can follow you and read your stuff and talk about coaching and stuff like that.
Absolutely. So I'm on LinkedIn, Rachel Provan.
I'll be linking it in the show notes. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, I write almost every day on there trying to give you actionable advice. I also have a newsletter that can bring you actionable advice once a week, 5-minute or less read, and it will always have a few tips that you can put into action right away to make a difference. And most of it's around CS leaders. That's what I focus on. But if you would like CS leadership coaching that, helps you set the right strategy for your organization, learn how to set up what are the right strategic goals for you to focus on this quarter, learn how to do that for yourself, and have someone hold you by the hand through all of this that we were talking about. That's what I do. Like, I'm not afraid to tell people because you need help actually putting it into place in your life.
Oh, absolutely. Especially.
So I also help CS leaders get new jobs or people who want to move from CSM to director. All of that can be found at Provan Success, Provan. You'll see it on my LinkedIn homepage too, provansuccess.com. I welcome the chance to talk to anyone. I always take a call with anyone. Nothing's like straight book up, typical CS leader. We love talking to people.
That's awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure. I'm sure we'll get back together in 6 months to a year, and we have another great subject to talk about that we'll chat about next time.
Absolutely.
It was a pleasure. Just hold on one quick second while I stop the recording.